Welcome back inside Unreal Engine for filmmakers. In this masterclass, you will know how to integrate your footage with 3D scenarios using Nuke and Unreal Engine. Once we complete the export of our XR sequence, we can return inside of Unreal. The first thing I want to do is import this sequence inside of my Unreal Engine project. So let's create a new folder. I call it Virtual Production. And inside of it, I will add all the elements that I need for my workflow. So now right click on our folder and let's search for image media source. And I will call my image media source EMS underscore static shot. Let's open. And on sequence path, I can import my EXR sequence. In this case, I will select the first frame of my sequence and let's click open. Now I have also specified the frame rate of my sequence, in this case 24. And now we can open our sequence. And as you can see, we have our sequence in alpha inside of Unreal. Now we can save our image media source. Let's close it. And now we have to add a media texture inside of our folder. In this case, I will call it empty underscore static shot. Now I want that my media texture read the sequence from the image media source. So let's create a sequence. I will add my new sequence inside the virtual production folder, and I will call it ls underscore static shot. Now we have to add a new media track inside of our sequence. Let's click on this plus icon, and we have to select our image media source. In this case, EMS static shot. Once we imported our image media source inside of our sequence, we have to link it to our media texture. We can do it simply clicking on the media track timeline, properties, and set our media texture inside the media texture. If we want to check if we made this step in a correct way, we can open the static shot. Let's minimize it. And moving the timeline, as you can see, we are moving also the video inside our media texture. Pay attention, be sure that your frame rate sequence match the frame rate of your image media source. So let's set our sequence at 24 FPS. Now I want to deactivate my post-process volume inside my sequence. So let's find our post-process volume in the outliner and let's import it inside our sequence. Let's deactivate the visibility. Now I have to choose the position of my subject inside of my environment. In this case, I want to put my subject out of this door, looking to him from the inside of the cave. Don't worry about this glow, because we will adjust it inside of our 3D camera when we will create our camera movement. Okay, I think I will put my subject around here, and I will put my camera around here in order to see also the reflection of my subject on the water. So now let's create a plane to insert our media texture inside of it. So search for a plane inside the place actor. Let's rotate it. And now I have to change the scale of the X and the Y based on the aspect ratio of my video. So let's set the X to 1.6 and the Y to 0.9. Now, in order to achieve a good result, I have to create the correct master materials for my media textures. You don't have to create from scratch these materials, but you can download it in the description of this video. However, I will explain you how the materials works in order to give you an overview of this process. As you can see, I have two master materials and two materials instance. The first material I want to show you is the Advanced Materials Masked. Let's open. As you can see, I simply created a masked material with a shading model set to unlit. In this way, the lighting will not affect my subject. And with this structure, I can manage a little bit the color grade of my material, and also I can manage the quality of the edges of my footage. You have to know that the mask material doesn't work with the semi-transparency. So you can have or a full visible element or a complete invisible element. In order to fake the semi-transparency, I activated the Vithery opacity mask. As you can see, the semi-transparent area of my footage in this case are made by those ugly dots. But don't worry, we will fix it with the transparent material. As you can see, if I deactivate the dithering opacity mask, I will lose the fake semi-transparency effect. Now let's reactivate the dither opacity mask. As I told you, we will fix this effect using the transparent material that I created. So let's close it. And now let's connect our masked material instance to our plane. Let's fix the size of our plane. Let's scale a little bit. Okay. I set my material instance in order to make my footage really bright to match the exposure of the environment. If your material instance looks black inside the environment, you can copy the same settings that I made inside the material instance. As you can see, I set the brightness to 5000 and I decrease a little bit the saturation in order to match it with the environment. Now I have to adjust the lighting of my environment. In this case, this is the default lighting of Dark Ruins environment. Now let's activate some lights that I put inside this environment in order to match it with my footage. As you can see, I add a rect light from the top of my footage, and I add another two rect lights in order to make more smooth the fall off between the outside and the inside of my environment. And as you know, if we look close to our subject, we can see these ugly dots in the edges. Now we will fix this problem directly inside of our environment. So first we have to duplicate our plane. Now let's connect our new plane to the older plane. And now let's change the material instance of our new plane. In this case, I duplicated the material instance of my masked material and I change only the master material of it. As you can see, we have the same settings, but a different parent. This is a translucent material, And these materials support also the semi-transparent parts. Let's connect our material instance to our new plane. And now I will show you the master translucent material. As you can see, the translucent material support the semi-transparent areas. But the translucent material have another problem that, for my opinion, is worse than the problem of the masked material. Using a translucent material, you will achieve a semi-transparent material. So you will see also the elements behind of our material. I will show you directly inside the environment. As you can see, if we activate only the translucent material, you will see also the fog and the outline of the element behind of our subject. So to achieve a good result, we have to combine these two materials. But in order to blend our two materials, we don't need simply put it inside of our environment. We have to manage the material instance of our masked material. In this case, I create some parameters that will allows you to manage the fall-off between the masked material and the translucent material. In this case, we have to consider the erode edge and the opacity strength. Now I will show you better what I'm doing deactivating the translucent material. Moving the opacity, we will change the opacity of our material. In this case, if we go down of 0, we will make our material transparent. And if we increase it, we will obtain some ugly artifacts. So in this case, I'll suggest you to leave this value set to 1. With the erode edge, we will manage the erode and the fall off of our edges. Let's zoom in a little bit to see better. As you can see, the increasing this value will reduce the fall off of our edges. And increasing this value, we will shrink our alpha and we will make our dot fall off more smooth. In this case, a value around 11 is a really good starting point. Now we can reactivate our translucent material. And as you can see, we achieve a good result. Remember that we are doing the compositing process inside of Unreal, and Unreal is not made for compositing. I think that this process is almost creative process than a technical process that we saw with the Nuke workflow. To this type of process, I suggest you to keep your camera distance from your subject and not too much close in order to avoid those artifacts. I prefer the Nuke workflow in order to achieve a better and professional result. But I have to admit that this process is really more creative, simply using a small green screen and without the necessity of a giant studio for your productions. As you can see now, we are seeing our footage from a really close distance. But if we keep our camera more distance from our subject, we will reduce this effect. I also remember to put your 3D camera at the same angle of your real camera, because we have a sort of sticker inside of Unreal. We don't have a 3D subject. As you can see from this angle, we can't see any problem in our shot. But if we move our camera from the opposite side, as you can see, we have a sort of distortion to our plane because this is a 2D plane inside a 3D environment. Using the translucent material also, we can manage better the position of our subject. I can give you a simple example, moving our subject inside the floor. Now let's deactivate the translucent material, and if I try to put my masked material down of the floor, as you can see, my plane will be cut by the 3D element. But by using the translucent material, our subject will be over the 3D element. In this way, you can adjust better the position of our subject based on the shadows. In fact, if we try to put our subject in the correct way, based on the plane dimensions, it seems like she's levitating and not touching the ground. So let's fix the position of our subject. We can even improve the shadows, deactivating the shadows from the plane. So let's go in details of the plane of the masked material and search for cast shadows and deactivate the casting of the shadows. As you can see now, we have the real shadows of our footage. Now I can finally create my 3D camera inside of Unreal. So let's import inside of our environment a Cine Camera Actor, and let's find that position that we want to achieve. Something around here, okay. As you can see, I'm trying to see my subject also in the water. And now let's set the exposure of our camera. So in details panel, search for exposure and change the metering mode to manual and the exposure compensation to something around -4. As you can see now, we can clearly see better our image. I can put my camera around here. Okay, here is better. Let's add our new camera inside the sequencer. Let's add a new keyframe on the transform. And another keyframe in the end of our sequence. As you can see, I'm creating a little parallax in my sequence. Let's create another keyframe. Let's check the animation. Okay, I think that this movement is okay, but I can improve the look of my image adding some 3D elements in the background. In this case, I added before some rocks and I deactivated before to start this recording. So let's reactivate it inside the outliner. As you can see, I simply add 4 elements that change completely the look of my sequence. Maybe I can reduce the effect of my parallax. So I will change the last keyframe of my animation. Okay, now I want to be sure that there are no more post-process volumes activated inside my environment. So let's check it. Okay, as you can see, the PPV local cave is activated. So I will drag inside my sequencer and I will deactivate the visibility of my post-process volume. Now I have to set the correct focal distance by tracking the position of my plane. Now my subject will be always in focus during the entire duration of my camera animation. Now we can finally add our sequence inside the movie render queue. And obviously we have to manage the settings of our render. In this case, I export an IEXR sequence with a spatial sample count set to 1 and a temporal sample count set to 16, and the ACEs for the color output. Now I can set the output directory of my render, and once my render will be complete, I can grade it inside of DaVinci Resolve. As you can see, with a simple grade, I create a really cool look for my render. As I told you, this process is not perfect. You will achieve some artifact, but is a really creative. So have fun with the 3D camera inside of Unreal and create stunning result combining the workflow that we discover inside of Nuke with this method.
Allora, quello che andiamo a vedere adesso è un po' tutta l'illuminazione ambiente che andiamo a fare. Come abbiamo impostato il corso, noi sostanzialmente per lato cinematografia, che andremo poi a spiegare in un video a parte, quello che andremo a fare è partire dal setup un po' più complicato, quindi anche un po' più diciamo pieno, lato anche emittenti, lato modificatori e anche quello magari che è un po' meno filmmaker friendly. Da lì andremo a scalare, andremo a fare delle cinematografie sempre più semplici fino a fare diciamo quasi un essenziale da intervista e da overcast, quindi non preoccupatevi di tutto quello che vedrete. Gireremo con C400 con sistema motorizzato, però di nuovo tutto quello che vedete lo potete fare anche a mano. Infatti uno di questi set lo tratteremo proprio a mano per farvi vedere che non c'è bisogno di per forza cinecamera, per forza cinelens, per forza di fuoco remotato automatico col LiDAR, che tra l'altro lo andiamo a usare oggi per la prima volta, è una figata, ve lo faccio vedere, c'è proprio non abbiamo operatore, abbiamo un fuoco automatico ma remotato. Io è la prima volta che lo uso, lo facciamo vedere la pulizia delle lenti, però per nostro ricordo lo facciamo vedere. Brava Canon per questo bel una merda, vabbè, lasciamo perdere, però appunto quello che andremo a fare è questo: abbiamo la nostra modella, abbiamo i nostri tracker, abbiamo il nostro studio, ci andiamo a portare a casa sostanzialmente queste scene e poi le andiamo a mettere dentro Unreal. Ovviamente prima di girarle, prima di fare questa cinematografia, abbiamo degli ambienti pensati per questo tipo di fotografia, per questo tipo appunto di situazioni. Poi la cosa bella è che se vogliamo prendere un minimo di libertà creativa, lato backlight, lato fill, lato key o tutte le emittenti che vogliamo mettere, poi sappiamo che in post possiamo diciamo aiutarci con le diegetiche che andremo a vedere in 3D. Vi lascio il corso.
So guys, in this video, we are going to see the set overview, how we set it up, how we placed everything in the set. We're going to see a bit of B-rolls and everything that we used there. So here's the scheme. And by the way, the scheme has been made with Cinematography Designer, another product that you can find in our shop. And we have a bunch of, obviously a bunch of meters from 9 light, 1 aperture. And again, everything that you're going to see there is being placed for the fact that we are going and we have created, you know, different kind of scenario. It doesn't mean that, you know, by having all those meters, we have to use them all the time. No, that's not the fact. That everything you can see here have a specific reason of why it's here, and we used it in specific way, and you're going to see for every set how we used it, the power, the Kelvin, etc., etc. So first of all, the ambient illumination, it's been made in this studio with the Godox panel that you can see here in the B-roll, and this type of panels have been placed one almost 60 centimeters one from the other to create uneven illumination. It doesn't mean that you have to purchase tons of lights, but obviously when you are going to shot on a studio that has a green screen, normally situation like this are already there, so you don't have to bother about it. But if you're doing your own studio, again, think about area light, think about diffusers, panels, think about a situation that create an uneven illumination of this green screen. And starting about this from the Godox, which they've been set for all the sets at 56,000 Kelvin, which is the same cold temperature that we maintain on the Nalent Evoque 120D, both of them on the sides. We set them as an help and also a characterizational use for our subject for some type of environment, in order to have them with a Fresnel lens bouncing on our top top bouncer, on our top whiteboard, which is the butterfly flag that you can see in big with like opacity 50% on our scheme. So that kind of butterfly that is on the top of our character has been put there because we wanted in some situation to brighten even more the area where we had our subject. On some situation we have them turned off, so we will have just used the Godox themselves, and on other situation we just have them with the spread of our Fresnel placed set in a way or another. The main core of the two Nightlight Evoke on both the sides were of like lifting the overall volume of the image of our subject, or cleaning a bit like the foreground, cleaning a bit the shadows, or just giving an impact of an overcast image if you want to like bright up everything else. Then we have our Nightlight 300B, our Aputure 600X, which an octobox. Then the Alien 300B, which is from Nightlight, and which is RGB. Nightlight 300C with a Fresnel lens. And then on the bottom, a Nightlight 720B, still with a Fresnel lens, and a Nightlight 300B. Then we got a bunch of whiteboards, diffusers, full diffusers, half diffusers, 1/4, 1/8 diffusers, a blackboard, and another board that was bounce on one side and a negative on the other sides. And also we have our C400 on a custom made dolly and crane. And again, everything that you are seeing here is what we choose in order to make it handier and easier for the illumination of the masterclass. So everything that you're seeing will be like breakdown in which type of temperature we use, which type of modifier we use. You don't have to focus yourself too much on exactly what type of emitter we use, because you can actually do the same thing that we might have done with the Nightlight 300C with an equivalent from Aputure, or with an equivalent from Godox, or from other manufacturer with the same Fresnel lens. Or if you will see like some of this emitter maybe with the Fresnel lens that are warming up the scenario at 32,000 Kelvin, you can use a tungsten lamp which is the same modifier with the same Fresnel. So don't focus yourself too much on what we use, because you can customize it and help yourself with other emitters. But that's everything that we add in our scenario. And again, it doesn't mean that on every shot, on every breakdown, we have to use them all. We just have them there. We turn on and customize each one of that on every shot, and that's a fact. So you want to know this before we start. The next video, we will have finally the cinematography breakdown of the first shot, the bridge, which is really cool, really interesting. I'm sure you will love it. It's the first of our series. I'll see you in the next video. So there we go with our first cinematography breakdown, the bridge, which is one of the, I might say, fullest setup, the ones that use almost everything that you saw on the setup. And let's jump without any further into it. Here we have one of the backstage shots that shows what we used for this setup, the intensity, and how we placed everything all together. Here you can see the camera in movement. We have our butterfly, our Nulux Evoke that are helping the overall situation, and we have everything running in a really good way. So let's take a look right now at the setup, and let's take a look then at the setup with the clips themselves. So we have set our Evoke blasted 100% to our butterfly to not just help the green screen, but also our overall situation. As the scene you're going to see, it's actually lit from a pretty bright sky, but not really bright, a bit overcast, but still it helped us a lot, you know, blending a lot our subject. And on this specific scene, I wanted to play a lot with the light that I had as backlights. As you can see, I used them all on different powers, but all at the same Kelvin. Everything is 56,000 Kelvin, so it's like the temperature that we set our green screen in, because we wanted to blend everything in the same way. But we wanted to create some like places, some sides of our character to stand out a bit more. Let's take a look at it. We wanted to use meticulously the Nanlite 300C blended with the Alien 300 for our right backlight, in order to just separate from the background differently from the left part with the Aputure and then 300B, because we wanted to use these modifiers to like create that kind of punch that light will have on that side, or that our brain will let us read it in that way. So we have our 300C at 85%, sorry, with our diffuser. It's not written in there, but it was at 1/8. And then we have our Aputure, obviously with the Octo blended with the 300B, which is like mixing up a really wide spread of light with this tiny 300C without, you know, a Fresnel lens that is giving that kick that is merged with the Aputure, and light it's actually blending in. And as a key, I wanted to like fill everything a bit up with the usage of the 720B and 300B, one at 85%, the other 100% with full flood. And as you can see from the green screen shot, they're both working together, but the kick that the Fresnel gives to my subject has been filtered even more with the diffuser at 1/4. And then we have the negative fill on the other side that is obviously cranking a bit down the bounce of light that we might have from the chroma, and that is helping us by reading the scene, because obviously the part that is actually in front of the camera and on the camera side and on the left side, it's supposed to be a bit darker, as we have this kind of situation that, you know, it's not illuminated from the sky. We have this hole that it's in front of her, and so that's why I decided to like make this kind of illumination based mainly, you know, on the back side, you know, on the backlight side. Even because when we talk about the key here, it's about bouncing and getting filtered just to open up and to motivate the environment. One disclaimer and one important thing to say is that this is my setup and my interpretation for this kind of environment. You as a filmmaker or as a DP or as an artist could have illuminated this in another different way, but I want to give you my vision, and I want to motivate, you know, anything that I use here, everything that I use here, to give you just my vision, my interpretation, obviously. And here you have it. Obviously we can see at the shot in the green screen itself, so we can see how it speaks on the backlight side, you know, how that merge of Fresnel diffused, the Alien, the Aputure, everything create this kind of blend. And we have her silhouette that is speaking from right to left side in a totally different way. And if we take a look obviously at the key, same thing, different types of obviously emitter placed and bouncing in different way to create this result. And then the final result, in my opinion, blending in a really good way. Also the shadow cast on the floor is great, and as we can see on the green screen, it's also working really well from the right to the left side. You can see that obviously the shadow works in a totally different way from the right to the left side, and the left side it's way sharper, but not that much. You know, it has to interpret what we are seeing right there, and this is crucial. We don't want to have a shadow that is unnatural for this situation and for this scene. I'm pretty happy with it, and the fact that it's shaped from like another hedge on the right side to a way softer hedge on the left side, it helps me out a lot, you know, blending everything in and calling it as done. And so this was our first of different setups that we're going to see. The next one is called the Golden Crypt. We have different setups for this one, different shots from this one. We'll start from a wide one as this one. I will go to a close-up and we will have fun. We'll see the interpretation of this. It's probably my favorite one, the next one. Still, we have used lots of things also here. So we try to merge the situation, and when it comes to merging your subject to the background to the situation, if we have a dense situation, it's good to represent this kind of three-dimensionality on your subject with different light that cast light and temperature in different ways. And we're going to see that on the next video.
Okay guys, Filippo showed you in the previous video the shooting process for this clip. Now I will use this video to create a recap for the composite process inside of Nuke. So we started with our read node and we created our clean plate using the IBK colors and the PXF screen clean. We created the clean plate to help the chroma key process for our key light and our gizmo nodes. After, we add a denoise node to make more easy the operation of my key light, and obviously also to reduce the noise inside of our footage. After, we add our key light and simply adjusting the clip black and the clip white, we achieve a really good core matte for our footage without any feather on the edges. After, we created our soft matte using the IBK colors node, as we created the screen clean, and after we use the information of IBK colors and the denoise node and connected to a IBK gizmo node. In this way, we generated our soft matte. After, we combine our core matte and our soft matte using a merge node on an over operation and deactivating the RGB channels on our merge node. In this way, we will avoid to shift the color of our footage by the IBK gizmo. After that, we use the PXF kill spill node to eliminate the green cast from our subject. As you can see, using this gray color, we delete any green color inside of our footage. After, we combine the dispill process and the matte process, and we used an edge extend node to create better edges around our subject. Finally, we use a roto mask to isolate our subject for the entire footage. After that, we import our node with the bridge and the fog, and we merge in a really simple way our footage and our 3D elements using two merge nodes. And obviously, we match the resolution of our footage with our renders using a reformat node in this case. We also improve our fog inside of Nuke using a blur node and two grades node. The first to set the amount of fog inside of our composite, and the second grade node to integrate in a better way our subject with the fog. After that, we use the original shadows of our footage and we bring it inside of our renders using a green keyer node and a luma keyer node to replicate these shadows look inside of our composite. And we combine these two keyer using a key mix node. And as you can see, we achieve our real shadows inside of our composite. And we add also a ZD focus node to create the blur of our focal length and in order to achieve a more realistic look inside of our final result. And finally, we use a final reformat node to specify the output of our render, and we export our composite in order to grade it inside of DaVinci Resolve. So I hope you that now this node graph is not more a problem for you and you don't have fear to approach Nuke because you have all the knowledge to create your composite inside of Nuke without any problems. In the next lessons, we will show you new case studies and new composite that you never seen before in this masterclass.
Okay, the Golden Crypt is one of my favorite one, and on this one we are going to see different scenarios. We will start from like a close-up, and then we will go in on wider shots, still with the same setup. Actually, I want to show you the setup before showing you the scheme itself with this 709 shot directly from the camera. Just to let you understand what we did here. Again, I wanted to talk, with my environment even more by using my emitters in different ways with different temperatures. And this time I haven't used my Chu Evoke to like help with the environment or create an overcast situation, like a rain light situation, but I wanted to use my Nanlite 700B, as you can see on the right side, as like a bounce diffuser on the front side. Let's see at the scheme. There's the scheme. So you can see from the background 900 300B, 27,000 Kelvin. Then we have the Aperture 32,000, then 27 the Alien 300B, and the 300C 3,000 Kelvin. And then we have our Fresnel 4,000 Kelvin. So all different temperatures that blends out for our environment who have warmer tones, but we wanted to blend those warmer tones with different types of emitters and different types of modifiers to create this motivation. And again, we have a wide bounce just to give a bit of a feel for some of these shots. On one of these will be a double negative, so we'll have a negative on the right and on the left side. But on 2 of 3 of these, we have a negative on the right side and one white bounce on the left side. So as you can see also here, different ratio of power, different temperature to get something like this that speaks out itself. We want to blend the image with our environment in the proper way, and we wanted to like create this scenario that actually blends in a really three-dimensional way. We can see at the clip itself that obviously it's properly detached from the background. The background is still with that white balance. We haven't touched that, but still we have our warmer tones on our characters because we want to motivate the situation itself. And you can see again from right to left side how differently light have effect on air. And if we go on the final shot, you also see how it has been chroma keyed properly, how we have like our hair that stands out in a really, really great way. And you can see how really it has a proper effect on the final render, how it properly works. And the cool thing here is that we want to replicate what we have on our scene. So those Fresnels on the right, and also the aperture with the octo, it's also helping a bit this really smooth and nice tones, golden tones that we have. Also the merge of different Kelvins, it's helping us creating this three-dimensionality in terms of obviously colors. we can see the exact same scheme on this different scenario. We have a master shot here where we want to blend it in the exact same way. We want to play with shadows. We want to obviously again have those warmer tones that are kicking in a bit more on one side than the other, and also have this cast that it's working, bouncing properly on the upper side. And on this specific situation, we have our white bounce on the left side that it's opening up a bit our scene. And the cool thing about scenes like this, as I said on the previous one, is that this is my interpretation. You can take it, modify it, and have your own interpretation with the same environment, and again having, you know, a different result. That's the cool thing about this course again. And as you can see here, also we haven't used for the backlights any kind of diffuser, but different modifiers. Okay, and it blends really well. Then we have this one where we flipped our left white bounce as a negative fill, because we have our character that's coming through the camera, and by looking at our environment, when she goes through the camera, she's like going away from the lights that we can see on the background from that from the background that we have on that environment. And it's also losing the touch of the torches and all the other lights. And obviously she's going into this crypt that's really dark and really shadowy on that side, and that's why we want to add those two negative fills. And it blends in a really good way, in my opinion. It works properly. And again, here we have again the shadows that are talking for us, because we have the shadows that are casting obviously a lot more through the camera, because that's how the environment is working. And I love the scene, I love how it went, and it's really great. On next video we are going to see another setup, and this time we are going to like cut even more light and create like an overcast situation. This is going to be the overcast valley, this shot C. This is where we are going to have a bit like less playground in the backlight. We are going to merge our character in a bit more difficult scenario, in my opinion, but still the base is still the same. We're still looking at shadow, we're still looking at how it blends with our scenario. Still same white balance for the green screen, same white balance for the camera. That's a thing that we haven't changed, obviously. I'll see you in the next video.
In this video, I will talk about the post-production process, about some clip that we work for this masterclass. More precisely, in this video, I will talk about all the clips with a warm lighting. This type of lighting matched really well with the mood of the environment. I will start with this clip, talking about the camera track. We saw this composite in a previous video about the additional effects that you can add inside of Nuke. But this video is also a great case study to talk about how much is important to use custom camera tracks. Don't worry about the structure, I simply try to create another type of mask around my subject, but don't worry, I made the same process that I explained you in the previous video. But as you can see, in order to track properly this clip, I need to use 4 custom trackers. In this case, I needed to create this custom tracker because this clip have a lot of depth of field. And as you can see, my background is really out of focus. So using these custom tracks, I helped the camera tracker tool in order to create a good camera track. And as you can see, the result is pretty good. And in this case also, I needed only 4 custom trackers, and I used it only for a portion of my composite and not for the entire duration of the clip. About the chroma key, in this case I use the pro tools of Nuke. In order to don't lose the details in the air, as you can see, there are a lot of fine hairs in this clip. I tried to replicate the same result with the free version of Nuke, but nothing compared to the final output that I achieved with the complete version of Nuke. Now I will show you how I set the key light and the prime matte. As you can see, for the key light, I push a little bit the clip white in order to achieve a better selection of my footage. In this case, I create a core matte also with the key light. I know that I explained you that we have to achieve a soft matte in this case, but for this specific clip, I find the best solution using a key light also as a core matte. So don't have fear to sometimes break the rules. Now let's talk about the prime matte. I create something more similar to a soft matte than a core matte. We can see that I inverted the key light function and the prime matte function for this shot. In this case, I even don't worry about it, the inner side of my subject, because I know that combining the prime matte and the key light, I will achieve a good result. For example, in this case, I forget to select this area of the hairs, but if we check the merge node between our key light and our prime matte, we can see that we achieve a great result in any case. Let me repeat, I don't follow the right process for the chroma key in this case, but it's okay since we achieved the correct result. So let's talk about the dispel. In this case, I decided to set my dispel color to something about this orange. That's because during the pre-production process, I decided what is the environment for my subject. So I decided to emphasize the color of my environment directly inside the dispel tool. Talking about the environment, I want to tell you about the edit that I made inside of the Dark Ruins project. By default, this zone is not dominated by this orange look, but the fog and all the particulars effect are dominated by a green color. I think that Epic Games and Quixel Megascan decided to use the green instead of orange or another color in order to create a more mystical and magic look. In my case, I edit some element in order to match my environment with my footage. As you can see, I add some spotlight and I match the color temperature to the same color temperature of the light in the set. And in this case, the light scheme of the set, it was really important for me. As you can see, I also shifted the colors of the green element to orange. It was really simple because in this case, there are, I think, 2 or 3 material instances that define this green look. Obviously, in this case, I don't need to recreate the shadows of the real footage since we don't see the ground in this footage. Talking about the depth of field, I want to tell you how much in this case the anamorphic look helps me to create a really stunning result in my environment. Honestly, I don't like so much the look with the classical spherical bokeh, and as you can see, the final result is really different without the anamorphic look. In this case, use a filter to create this anamorphic look, create more the idea that this environment is real and not CGI. Also, this is a personal opinion. You can also decide to use the spherical bokeh and create a stunning result without the anamorphic filter. To achieve my final output, I obviously add the fog. That, like always, helps a lot to merge our environment with our footage. For my experience, adding fog inside your composite is always a great idea, obviously depending by your situation. After the fog, as you know, I add the lens flare and the dirt mask. Now let's talk about this footage. In this case, the process, it was really simple. I made a simple camera track without using any custom tracker, and for the chroma key process, I made a really simple chroma key using the Pro Tools of Nuke, but I tried also to replicate the same footage with the non-commercial version, and there is almost any difference in the final output. About the dispel, I made the same process of the previous video. I pushed a little bit more the orange tint, but as you can see, in the final output, we achieve a really similar result. In this case, I also add this rock on the left side of my image in order to replicate the black flag position that we used during this set. About the focus, I don't have so much thing to tell you. The only thing that I made differently between the old composite is not to use the anamorphic filter, but I simply changed the aspect ratio of the spherical bokeh. Now let's talk about this composite. As you can see, starting from the camera track, I made a really simple camera track without using any custom tracker. About the chroma key process, I simply copy and pasted the structure of the previous composite, and after I adjusted all the nodes that I need to fix in order to create a correct chroma key. So you don't have always to create from scratch your node structure. You can also copy and paste it another structure and adjust the single nodes. Obviously, sometimes you will need to change all the setting in all nodes, but I think it's more fast than create from scratch every time the structure of the node. In this case, I simply change a little bit the keylight, the premat, and obviously I made from scratch the roto mask of my subject. About the environment, in this case, I change a lot the exposure of my environment in order to match it with the footage. And exposing this way your CG environment without losing details is possible only through the EXR render from Unreal. As you can see, our environment exposure match really well with our subject, after I obviously add the fog in order to achieve my final result. Now let's talk about this result. I choose another area of my environment to put my subject, and in this case the process of chroma key and tracking, it was really simple. Instead, inside Unreal, I made some adjustment inside the environment that change a lot the final result. In this case, I add a giant spotlight in the left side of my environment coming from this hole. And as you can see in the background, we have the same area that we saw in the previous composite. For this result, I deactivated all the spotlight that I added before in order to achieve a brighter area with the subject and a darkest area behind of it. For this shot, I also adjust the global lighting of the directional light of my environment. By default, the sky is set to a more neutral look, but in this case, in order to merge better my subject inside my environment, I set the color of my skylight to orange, and also I add these flames to make more realistic the lighting to my subject inside of this corridor. As you can see, these flames are not so real, they have a really old-gen game look, but I prefer to use these assets because they are free, and I didn't want to use paid asset for this masterclass, just because you have to understand that you can create a stunning result without paying for 3D asset with Unreal. As you see in this video, we don't have fear to edit our environment, because sometimes we need to change the look of our environment in order to create a better match with our footage. And the only limit in this case is your creativity and your ideas. You can create whatever you want just using the free environments and the free asset that you can find inside the marketplace. Obviously, I suggest you to create always a copy of your level environment when you want to change a lot the final result, just to be sure to don't lose the original project. In the next video, we will see another footage that we put inside this area of Dark Ruins environment, but in that case I will tell you how to fix the problem caused a bad shoot that we could receive.